Leading up to the start of the Colts season, I'm doing this bit called Final Five Takes. So I'm giving you a big Colts take every day. Give my first one last week on Friday. So that Anthony Richardson was going to finish with a 3-to-1 touchdown to turnover ratio. So that's rushing touchdowns and passing touchdown compared to fumbles and interceptions. Today's big Colts take is that Michael Pittman Jr. will not lead the Colts in receiving yards this next season. Okay, the Colts are much better at receiver this year than they were last year. Michael Pittman Jr. was hands down the Colts' best wide receiver. Okay, Josh Downs as a rookie was good. Not great, though. Okay, I still really feel like Michael Pittman Jr. was the only guy that they really trusted last year, especially since Alec Pierce could only run straight down the field. That's all he could do. He couldn't run routes. He could just run straight. So things are a little bit different this year. Okay, yes, of course, Michael Pittman Jr.'s back. He got paid in the offseason, all those things. But Josh Downs should be better in year 2. Alec Pierce apparently looks better than he ever has. So we'll see how that works. A.D. Mitchell, he's obviously going to get a lot of looks, right? You don't spend a second-round pick on a guy like that if you're not going to put him on the field. And then, I think Anthony Gould is going to get some looks as well. This is a deep Colts wide receiver room. And Shane Steichen highlighted that during his press conference yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think within our scheme, with any scheme, you can line guys up wherever you want to. AD obviously played a little bit outside. He's been playing a little bit inside for us. Downs can play. He played inside for us. He can play outside. Alec can play inside, play outside. So I think the versatility of that group in a whole is really good. And we can put those guys where need be throughout a game plan that we feel really comfortable with all those guys' skill sets. So feel really good about the wide receiver group for sure.
Shane Steichen there talking about this Colts wide receiver group. There's a lot of talent on that team. So much talent on that team. And because the Colts are so much better wide receiver this year, Michael Pittman Jr., I just don't think he's not going to get the same amount of targets. He's going to have less receptions. And because of that, his receiving yards will go down. And unlike the last 3 years, he will not lead the Colts in receiving yards. He'll still have an impact on the offense. Wouldn't be surprised if he led the Colts in receptions, but he will not lead in receiving yards. I think we're going to see him a lot on third down because of the type of receiver that he is. Michael Pittman Jr. is an intermediate possession receiver. Okay, he's a guy who is at his best when he's running, 10 to 12-yard routes over the middle. Okay, like that's who he is. And I just don't think that that's the way that this Colts offense is going to work this year. There are really 2 reasons why I think that Michael Pittman Jr. will not lead the Colts in receiving yards. One is he's not a big play wide receiver. He's not. I think we're going to see a lot of big plays from the Colts offense this year, from Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell. We've seen Alec Pierce make big plays down the field before. I'm sure he'll make some this year. Shane Steichen, when you look at his offenses when he was with the Chargers and the Eagles, they want layups and big plays. Like that is what they want. Okay, they want easy throws and they want explosive plays down the field. He has said that. Shane Steichen has also said this offseason that there weren't enough explosive plays last year. Love Michael Pittman Jr. I think he's a good wide receiver. But he's not a big play threat. He's not. So I don't think that we're going to see him rack up, 30 yards on a reception. We aren't going to see that. It's going to be a lot of 8 to 12-yard receptions when it comes to Michael Pittman Jr., right? And on top of that, Shane Steichen, big plays or easy throws. When we look at, the strength of these Colts receivers, the guys that are going to separate underneath are the guys that are incredibly fast. Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, which means a lot of catch and run stuff for those guys. And Michael Pittman Jr. is not a catch and let me run for another 12-yard receiver. He just doesn't have the speed to do that, right? That doesn't play to his strength. So the way that the Colts want to throw the ball this year doesn't appeal to what Michael Pittman Jr. does at his best. The second reason why Michael Pittman Jr. will not lead the Colts in receiving yards this year is because the quarterback's different. Gardner Minshew and Anthony Richardson are obviously very different quarterbacks. Richardson with the running ability and the athleticism. Okay, Gardner Minshew a little bit more of a pocket guy, but also the way that they throw the ball is different. Okay, Gardner Minshew is just a more polished quarterback than Anthony Richardson is right now. Okay, and polished quarterbacks bode best for Michael Pittman Jr. and what his skill set is. Like Gardner Minshew was able to find Michael Pittman Jr. on those 10 to 12 yard routes, right? He was able to find him on curls and all those things. The things that Michael Pittman Jr. is really good at. Anthony Richardson, I don't think that's what he's good at yet. I don't think he's good at layering balls over linebackers and doing those things. Okay, Anthony Richardson, I think that the offense this year is going to look pretty similar to what Shane Steichen wants it to be. Short, underneath routes, followed by big bombs down the field. That's what I think we're going to see from this offense, and that's what Anthony Richardson is good at. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Richardson sitting back in the pocket, surveying the field, and throwing 12-yard in routes to Michael Pittman Jr., because that's just not what Anthony Richardson's very good at yet. Okay, he's going to throw the ball deep down the field, and he's going to hit guys short underneath on slants and drags and routes like that. That's what we're going to see from Richardson, and that just doesn't play into what Michael Pittman Jr. does well. Meanwhile, those throws deep downfield and those short crossers and drag routes and slants do play into the strengths of A.D. Mitchell and Josh Downs. Okay, those are two players that can win with speed down the field, and they're two guys that can separate in these underneath routes because of how fast they are. Because of that, they're going to get the bulk, I think, of the primary underneath targets. And because of their speed, they're going to make these big chunk plays. Okay, if I had to bet on who I thought was going to lead the Colts in receiving yards this year, it would probably be Josh Downs, even if he doesn't play week 1. I think we're going to see him a lot this year on those underneath routes where he can kind of separate. And I think we're going to see him make some big plays down the field as well because, once again, the dude is incredibly fast. Okay, Michael Pittman Jr., he'll still have his touch on the offense. Okay, I think he's going to be a really reliable third down guy. But instead of being, 100 reception guy for 1,100 yards like he was last year, I think we're going to see him be an 80 to 90 reception guy with somewhere between 800 and 900 yards receiving. Whereas from Josh Downs, he'll probably be around the same 80 to 90 receptions, but for over 1,000 yards because he's just going to make bigger plays with the ball in his hands due to how athletic he is. Okay. Now, while I'm doing 5 big takes leading up to the Colts season, I'm doing the same thing for the NFL. So last week I did 2 on Thursday. I said that, the Texans were going to go 8-9 and that Stephon Diggs was going to hurt the Texans. And I also said that the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to win the AFC South. Today's big take for just the NFL in general is that the Chiefs and the Lions will be the 1 seeds. Okay? The Chiefs, not a hard one to get behind. Okay, this feels like an easy prediction, but it's the right one. Okay, the Chiefs were the 3 seed in the AFC last year, despite being second to last in turnover differential at -11. Okay, I've talked a bit about turnover differential on the show. It's something that kind of fluctuates from year to year. If you're really bad one year, you tend to go back to the average the following year. Okay, and look, the Chiefs gave away 11 fumbles last year. That's a lot. That probably won't happen again. And Patrick Mahomes threw 14 interceptions. I think part of that was because the receivers weren't very good for the Chiefs last year. They've upgraded in that room. Okay, so the Chiefs are going to be much improved. It's year 2 of Rashee Rice. Doesn't look like he's going to get suspended. Xavier Worthy is going to scare teams with his speed. Juju Smith-Schuster's back. They got rid of Kadarius Toney. They are much better in that wide receiver room. You say, oh, well, what about the offensive line? They apparently drafted their left tackle of the future as well because they're the Chiefs, and of course they did. The offense is going to be improved this year for Kansas City. It's okay, well, what about defense? They lost L'Jarius Sneed. Doesn't matter. They still have a ton of guys on defense that are going to be great for Kansas City. Trent McDuffie, he's one of the best corners in the NFL. Nick Bolton's one of the best linebackers in football. Chris Jones, now that Aaron Donald has retired, he's the best, interior defensive lineman in the NFL. Steve Spagnuolo's still there. Okay, a guy who's won more Super Bowls as a coordinator than any other coordinator in the history of the NFL. Okay, with 4. That defense is going to continue to be one of the best in the NFL. They're the best team in the AFC. I don't think anyone would really push back on that. Let's move to the NFC, where things are a little more interesting. The Lions are going to be the 1 seed. Okay, their team is almost identical to last year. They kept their 2 coordinators, which is a big deal. I would argue that the Lions have the best coordinator combination in the NFL. Okay, everyone thought that at least one of them, if not both of them, would leave for head coaching jobs. They both took interviews. They both turned down the job offers that they got to return to Detroit. Neither of them left. On offense last year, they didn't have any holes. Multiple good running backs, multiple good wide receivers. Jared Goff was great last year with great play calling and arguably the best offensive line in football. Okay, that offense is the exact same. They're going to be loaded once again on the offensive side of the football. And then defensively, their weakness last year was their secondary. So guess what they did? The Lions went out and they got a bunch of secondary guys. Okay, they are arguably the best roster in the NFL. They have a better roster than San Francisco. Okay, they have great coordinators. Dan Campbell's a good coach. Love how aggressive he is. He has this incredible skill of getting his players to play hard. Okay, like I'm telling you, the Lions are going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. And your question would probably be, well, what about Jared Goff? Because I think that the narrative around him is wrong. I think he's developed into a really good quarterback, right? He's not Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar. He's kind of on that tier below. Like he's better than Dak Prescott. Okay. Like Ben Johnson has done an excellent job with developing Jared Goff. Jared Goff was second in passing yards last year with over 4,500. He was fourth in touchdown passes with 30. And his touchdown to interception ratio was 5-2. He played great last year. And Jared Goff has an incredibly favorable schedule this year. When you look at the Lions' schedule and you think about Jared Goff, you want to play games in domes because he doesn't have a big arm. And, going on the road when it's cold and you got to throw the ball in cold weather is hard. And when we look at Jared Goff, he didn't have to do that this year. The Lions only play 3 games outside all year. 14 of their 17 games are played in domes. Week 9, they go to Lambeau. Week 16, they go to Chicago. Week 17, they go to San Francisco. Every other week, they are in a dome, which is going to help the Lions in that offense. Okay, playing in a dome, so much easier for offenses than it is playing outside. That's an advantage for the Lions. They have an awesome roster. They have great coordinators, and Jared Goff has gotten so much better since he arrived in Detroit. They're going to be the 1 seed in the NFC, and the Chiefs will be the 1 seed in the AFC. Okay, and because of that, because the Lions are going to be the 1 seed and the Chiefs are going to be the 1 seed, that means that either Jared Goff or Patrick Mahomes is going to win the MVP award. Okay, the quarterback of the 1 or 2 seed in the AFC or NFC usually wins the MVP. 7 of the last 10 players to win the MVP award have been the quarterback of the 1 seed in either conference. Okay, look, I don't have to sell you on the idea that Patrick Mahomes is going to win. It could win the MVP. But look, Jared Goff put up better numbers than Patrick Mahomes did last year. And even though the receivers in Kansas City are better, like the weapons around Jared Goff are better than the ones around Patrick Mahomes right now. Okay, Jared Goff put up better numbers than Patrick Mahomes did last year. And that obviously matters for who wins MVP. So if you want, I don't want to say dark horse or long shot, but Jared Goff is undoubtedly a guy who could win the MVP this year in the NFL. Okay, like he put up MVP level numbers last year. He could definitely do it again this year. And look, if the Lions are going to be the 1 seed in the NFC, which they are, then he'll have to put up MVP level numbers once again.